Hello and welcome into Pat's Latest. I'm your host, Mike Gambardella. And before we get started, make sure you get on, like, subscribe, and comment on this video what you think is going to happen in New England before we get into the latest information that you need to know. We're down to two teams in the NFL as the Super Bowl matchup is set. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles will go at it again, and the Patriots still have a lot of unanswered questions as they start to look at 2025 season with just one game left on the slate to wrap up this season. We'll jump right into it and get into what the roster decisions start to look like for your New England Patriots and who's going to be on that 53-man when 2025 kicks off coming soon in August. But as we look at that, one player we did talk about in a previous episode was DK Metcalf, the starting wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. And while there is some questions around where he will be playing next year, he made it fairly clear that he knows that one team won't be on that list. Appearing on Katie Nolan's podcast, DK Metcalf was asked about Massachusetts as a place to live and a desirable location. And DK was quick to shoot it down. He said Massachusetts is not a place that is a desirable location. He was quick to also point out that it is an amazing organization that Robert Kraft has built here and everything that the Patriots have done, especially in the past 25 years. But his comments quickly lead us to believe that any talk of a trade surrounding DK Metcalf, a 6'4" dominant player who the Patriots definitely need at that X position, and looking at wide receiver, we can cross off DK Metcalf. We can keep Cooper Kupp up there. Let's continue to see where it progresses, where his status with the Rams is, what they think of his contract status, and how that's going to progress. But DK Metcalf, we can take off there as a potential trade target. Cooper Kupp kind of gets that bump. And again, those top guys in free agency that we continue to mention with T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, and Hollywood Brown, who had a couple big catches in the AFC Championship game. Again, as it starts to unfold, we'll see who the options are for Drake May, but cross DK Metcalf off that list, at least for right now. As we start to look at who the Patriots might select in this upcoming draft cycle, would like to run through my first NFL mock draft and looking at the top 10 picks in this draft. And the Tennessee Titans comments were that they're not going to pass on a generational talent. Now, looking at this draft class, you would think that quarterback would be a need for the Titans, so Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders would be at the top of that list for them. But those comments would lead them to believe that it might actually be Travis Hunter that they could be targeting. So if he goes off the board at 1 and Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge, comes off at 2, that probably leaves Shedeur Sanders for the Giants at 3. At that juncture, you could probably see the Patriots getting Tet McMillan, the 6'5" dynamo wide receiver from Arizona. Answers a lot of questions, sets up Drake May for future success, and gives the Patriots something that they've been sorely lacking. Again, they need to address some spots on the defense and, more importantly, all the spots on the offensive line, but getting someone that can immediately help Drake May, whether that's going to be the trade market, free agency, or at the draft. We're going to continue to talk wide receiver, and Tet McMillan is that guy for the Patriots. As we look at the rest of that top 10 picks, Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan, probably going to Jacksonville. Cam Ward sliding down to the Raiders. Mason Graham, the defensive lineman from Michigan, followed by James Pierce, talented edge from Tennessee. Luther Burden, a name to watch as well as the wide receiver from Mizzou, who actually was regarded as a potential top overall pick coming into this draft, has slid down a little bit, but should be in that top 10 discussion, and then rounded out by potentially a top 5 player in this draft in Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia. So a lot of talent in this draft, and some other pundits actually talking about how running back could be a position that there's a lot of talent left. So if they're looking for someone to pair with Ramondre Stevenson, who had the down year, but has a contract that set him up to potentially be the Patriots' all-time leading rusher when all is said and done, in spite of a down year, perhaps having a 1A, 1B situation and taking some pressure off of him could actually help him out in the long run. So another long runway till we get to the draft season, but the first 10 picks out for me, and be sure to follow on X as well at Mike Gambardella, and I'll start to run through those picks as we get closer as well. Another name that we want to talk about near and dear to our hearts, especially as we mentioned Patrick Mahomes at the top of the broadcast, Tom Brady has come out and actually been on the broadcast circuit for a while, but also is a minority owner for the Las Vegas Raiders. Diana Rossini has actually come out and essentially said that there's a lot more going on with the Raiders than might be let on, and saying that Tom Brady is running everything for the Raiders. Now, that's a tough position when he is broadcasting for the NFL right now, but it lends itself to the decisions that the Raiders have been making. She went on to quote that a staffer at the Raiders building said they have no idea what's going on right now. And the fact that Pete Carroll, a 70-year-old head coach, was just hired could point to a placeholder. Now, this would make a lot of sense for two reasons. One, Carroll can come in, clean up a lot of what has happened, and set the Raiders up for future success. And if he has success, great. It sets them up even better. And it also cleans house for Brady to take another step forward in 25 or in 26. So don't be surprised to see Tom Brady's influence in Las Vegas continue to grow. It's already started now, having a lot of people talking about where that lands. And don't be surprised if Tom Brady gets to the point in 2026, if they do need a head coach, and Bill Belichick gets the itch again, assuming he does have even mild success at UNC, which we do expect him to have, that he wouldn't pick up the phone and call his old coach and say, hey, we need to run this back again. So again, a lot of moving parts, but at the end of it, looking like Tom Brady has a lot more influence in Las Vegas than initially we thought, even with having those broadcast ties currently. Now we'll wrap it up with looking at the Super Bowl matchup that's going to take place down at the Superdome in New Orleans in just 2 weeks. There's going to be a long media trail getting up to the game. But the big one that it comes down to, especially in New England, is where does the dynasty start to match up? Now, Patrick Mahomes, 7 years pretty much being in either the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl, outside of that 1 year where he lost to Tom Brady. But Patrick rewriting the record book, setting his own legacy, but needs to continue on those things. So the big question will be, does it set up the dynasty debate if they win an unprecedented potential three-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs and for Patrick Mahomes, and then really starts to get into this greatest of all time, best dynasties ever debate? Or are they actually finally set up for an opportunity where they might fall flat? There are a couple reasons why this could happen. The Eagles are an extremely talented team. They have a lot of experience. This is a team that was in the Super Bowl 2 years against them. This is a repeat from that game where Jalen Hurts led the charge again, and a great game as well. But setting it up for a chance to go back and do what they couldn't the first time. And the two big differences for this game is obviously, one, the addition of MVP candidate Saquon Barkley, who has absolutely run roughshod over the NFL this year and did it again throughout the playoffs and getting the Eagles back to this point of a precipice. And the other part is a more less-known name and an older statesman in the game and up in the coach's booth, in Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, who has completely turned around that side of the ball for Philadelphia and turned this into a very different unit. The Chargers led up front by Jalen Carter, the disrupted defensive tackle, who's going to make life difficult for Patrick Mahomes, who's really going to take away a lot of the running game for the Kansas City Chiefs, what they need to have some semblance of to be able to get everything else working. So don't be surprised if Philadelphia really makes a game of this one. Obviously, everything the Chiefs have done, how could you possibly bet against them? And that's my mantra going into this as well, is you can't bet against them because they continue to roll. And I tweeted out actually earlier, I'm starting to realize probably what other NFL fans felt like for 20 years, watching Tom Brady and the Patriots, of constantly being there and in the conversation and finding ways to win. And oh my God, that just happened. That was that call made, and was that right? Was that a catch? match. Suddenly, these things are starting to play out for the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're starting to see a lot of similarities between New England and Kansas City and Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Now, yes, granted, done very different ways, very different players, but at the end of the day in the NFL, wins are wins, and that's what we're charting. So don't be surprised to see another win charted for the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. We can start to have that true GOAT debate in earnest, not ready to change hands quite yet, but definitely puts Patrick Mahomes on a path forward to really make what seemed impossible and what Tom Brady did for 20 years. Suddenly, after just 8 years in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes is in a very prime spot to make that happen. We'll continue to monitor everything that's going on here for you and be back very soon with the next episode of Pat's Latest. Fight on, Foxborough.